What's Jared's favorite mechanics? First one, Cascade. Second one, the second Cascade.
Yeah. I came here to do two things. I came here to cascade, and I came here to cascade. Well, then that means that it's time for the MTG Thoughtcast. Afternoon, gentlemen. John with the jazz hands. How are you guys doing?
Hi there. Yeah. We're doing fine. It's time for more fantasy.
That's right. More Eldraine. Jared, how you doing, brother?
Dude, doing great. Having a great time. Just diving into some more Lord of the Rings stuff.
I know. They can't stop giving us this.
Definitely. Oh, go ahead, John.
We know you enjoyed first Lord of the Rings, but what about second Lord of the Rings?
Dude, this is the second breakfast of Magic Lord of the Rings. This is, dude, it's 11sies.
Okay, I kind of love that.
That's so funny. Well,
yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, I was caught off guard by this set even existing because I was not prepared for them to drop a brand new Lord of the Rings set almost immediately. They were like, Eldraine, nah, more Lord of the Rings.
Yes, they knew that Eldraine was mid, and they were like, they're going to want more Lord of the Rings, trust me.
They're like, we're sorry, Lord of the Rings.
That's very funny. Oh my God. Well, yeah, so they're doing a second release of Lord of the Rings. It'll have mostly all of the same products. More set boosters, more draft boosters, those types of things. But today we're going to be talking about one of the newer products that is coming along with it, which is the scene card sets. Easels.
Kits.
Things.
Bundles. Whatever.
So they are... It's an easel that has a set of 6 cards, so you know what you're going to get for all 6 of these scene cards. They make a panorama, they're a border, borderless, everything. And it's going to have 3 set boosters. Retail price is $40. So that's it's essentially taking the place of the One Ring bundles that they had, both the gift set and the other one, that each had like the One Ring. There was a Frodo, there was a Sam, and a Golem with it. That was the 4-card scene of it. So they're just doing 3 set boosters and a scene of 6 brand new cards that were designed exclusively for these. So this is the outside of collector boosters, right, John?
Yeah.
Of this new release, this is going to be the only place to get these cards. So there is 4 different scenes with 6 cards each, and that's the product. So we're gonna go through them today and then decide whether you should buy them or not.
Sick. I will kick us off here with Aragorn.
Nice. Hit me, Jared.
So just a brief overview of the 6 cards. We've got Aragorn, Hornburg Hero. That's a crazy word to say. We have Anduril, Narsil Reforged, Gimli's Reckless Might, Legolas Quick Reflexes, Isengard Unleashed, and Rohirrim Chargers. I'll read these cards off now. So Anduril Narsil Reforged is 2 colorless for a legendary artifact equipment. It has Ascend, and if what that means is if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. Whenever equipped creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. If you have the city's blessing, you put 2 +1/+1 counters instead.
Goodness,
that's actually wild.
Wow.
So the biggest unifying thing across all of these new cards, not just the ones that come out of the kit that you're talking about, which by the way is called Aragorn at Helm's Deep, is your scene kit card. The unifying thing amongst all of these cards is that each one features some old mechanic that's like very popular. Like, these are commander focused in mind. Like, these are included, their set code. They're part of the commander set for Lord of the Rings. And every single card really in these kits include some old mechanic brought back onto these cards, done in a like like these are mechanics that are strong for Commander, right? These are not standard power level cards, you know? So this one you just talked about has Ascend. We're going to see stuff like Split Second and Storm and Rebound and Annihilator and Devour.
This to me feels like they're really leaning into the fact that this Lord of the Rings set replaced the Modern Horizons set this year, where they're doing the same thing, where they're just going, we're taking any mechanic that functionally makes sense and we have access to it.
I think it's cool.
It opens up the creativity on some of these cards a little bit more because you can design them in a much more flavorful and synergistic way.
Ascend is so flavorful in this card.
Yeah.
The City's Blessing.
That's a very strong card too. Like you throw like Hardened Scales in the mix there, or the new Oscillus.
Yeah.
Dude,
freaking just because that's on attack and not even on combat damage. Like this is at minimum, this is 2 extra points of power before blocks are ever declared.
Exactly. Yeah, that's disgusting.
This very much feels like the sort of X and Y series. Like this feels, you don't get the protection from it, but it being 2 cost, equipping for 3, it sort of is in that same range. This is going to be a very, very heavily played card in equipment decks as well as +1/+1 counter decks.
Yeah. Literally, like any deck benefits from this because you just have to attack with a creature to make this thing good.
Yeah, you do want the City's Blessing for it though. That's what makes it crazy, is putting 2 counters on everything.
You're right.
1 counter on everything is like fine, but so you're probably playing this in like a token deck, which again, like if you're playing tokens or anything that goes wide, you're gonna get the City's Blessing so fast, and that triggering, like you getting the City's Blessing, means that you're in a good spot for the second ability to be firing off as well. So this is a very, very powerful equipment.
Yeah, this can honestly, if you have enough things on the board, this can end a game.
Yeah, definitely.
By surprise. Moving on to Aragorn Hornburg Hero. That is 1 red, green, white for a legendary creature, human soldier. Attacking creatures you control have first strike and renown 1. And renown 1 is when a creature with renown 1 deals combat damage to a player. If it isn't renowned, put a +1/+1 counter on it and it becomes renowned. Whenever a renowned creature you control deals combat damage to a player, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. Okay,
yeah,
that's sick. Also, heavy synergy. If you look at the art for these two, obviously Aragorn is wielding Anduril.
Oh yeah, he's meant to be carrying it.
So that gets out of control real quick. You could do a pretty neat theme deck around these two things.
These kits are really nice that they feature as part of the scene of them. One of it is a legendary creature, and the other 5 cards are cards that either are the color or colorless within that legendary creature's color identity.
Yeah, it almost like is like a starter for a commander deck. Yeah, it's like, look, here's the commander plus 5 cards that you're going to want to play with it.
Yeah, this is neat.
It's a neat way to do like a precon.
Also, he's a 4/4. Forgot to mention that, but cool card. Yeah, I think it's decent. Cool. Moving on to Legolas's quick reflexes. This
is the one we're going to talk about for a while.
Instant, split second. So super good already that it just has that. And for those of you that don't know what split second means or does, it basically doesn't allow, it empties the stack after it's been played. So you can't respond to split second, which makes it amazing. So untap target creature.
You can morph a creature. That is what you can morph. If something with split second is on the stack, you can morph a creature or you can channel. Concede. That is the.
Can you do the channel abilities of like the Bosages?
Can't cast spells and activate. No, because it's activating an ability.
Yep, channeling is an activated ability.
So yeah, that's how good split second is.
Like morph is a special action.
That's so. Morph is just a weird. Anyway, it's not a morph episode. We can get into that different time.
Anyway, that's split second.
So this card says untap target creature until end of turn. It gains hexproof reach, and whenever this creature becomes tapped, it deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature.
This card is sick. This is bonky for 1 green mana.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about it first, and then I'll gush about it for a second.
Man, It's just so good because like there's not a lot of cards like this that green has access to, where it's like you are responding to a combat trick essentially, or like it's like a weird flavored combat trick. And the split second on this just makes it like just throw it in any deck that doesn't have blue. Like you can kind of play around with some counter magic in green with this, which is neat. So yeah, I love this. I think it's great. Just one green for giving something hexproof and untapping it would be like probably fine. Like that would be on curve for like what in green mana can get you. But this is way better than that. So go ahead and take the reins on this one.
Right. We've never seen split second on an effect like this. But what that effectively means, because like compare this to something like Tamio's Safekeeping, which is similar. It's a green mana, it's an instant, it gives something hexproof and indestructible. Like it sort of functions as the like target a removal spell kind of like space. Split second on this means it's uncounterable counter target removal spell. Like that alone is ridiculous. So split second and hexproof being on the same card for a green instant is ridiculous. That alone is powerful. And then it only has more upside with it gains reach, doesn't gain indestructible, but a lot of the times where indestructible matters, hexproof is going to do exactly the same thing anyway.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
They basically are redundant.
Yeah, we talked about this last when I was bringing up about Royal Roll from our Eldraine episode, that you claim it that, yeah, these kind of effects that are an instant speed protects a creature. If it gives indestructible, that's a nice bonus, but the hexproof is what's more relevant.
Yes. When it says hexproof and indestructible, what that basically says is like, I'm going to protect my creature and fog one of your creatures that's attacking me. Like that's sort of how it plays out a lot. So like I'm not missing indestructible on this at all. So the upside of sometimes being a removal spell too. Are you kidding me? It's potentially repeatable and abusable because it's whenever it untaps or whenever it becomes tapped. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're playing something that's like tap and then it'll, untap itself and then tap again or whatever, like anything that has activated abilities, this becomes repeatable.
Dude, this in Derevi would be dumb.
Unbelievable. This has to go into Derevi. This is
getting this card for Derevi.
Yes. Because it's in some cases, what it's going to end up being is 1 green mana, uncounterable, counter target spell, and also like anytime you can tap and untap, it's just going to deal 2 damage to things.
That's so sick.
Ridiculous for 1 green. This is going to be the chase card of the entire set, I think.
Wow. Yeah, really strong.
The mode I like the most about this is that sneaky untap. You can sometimes just really catch somebody off guard with a blocker.
Oh yeah. Right.
They think doors wide open, come on in. Nah, how about I untap my thing that now also just gains reach, right?
Yeah.
The floor of this is...
Yeah, and that means that you've blocked and killed one of their creatures, and then it also has the extra ability of if you can tap it again and you can take something else out of theirs. Like, this is a blowout of a card for a single green mana.
So nuts.
This is going to like single-handedly turn the tide of games for the lowest possible cost.
John, did you have any other thoughts on that card?
Nope. Just, that's, super hard to stop, makes a creature very hard to kill, is abusable, and as cheap as you can get for an effect like this.
100%.
Yeah. I love that. This basically is Tamio's Safekeeping, but better. They just took indestructible off and gave it a bunch of other things that actually matter.
Yes. I think you want both of these effects. Like, I don't think that they exactly are interchangeable. But
because this doesn't save you from like a board wipe.
Exactly.
Like there's a reason people are still highly valuing cards like Heroic Intervention,
Yes, but I think, the combo of like Heroic Intervention, Legolas's Quick Reflexes, and then like one other flex spot that's kind of Tamio's Safekeeping, that's going to be enough protection for like your entire game.
Yeah, because all you have to do is just catch someone off guard once with this thing, and their whole game plan is just down.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, for the sake of time, let's move on.
Let's move on to Gimli's Reckless Might. It's 3 and a red for an enchantment. Creatures you control have haste. And it also has Formidable. Whenever you attack, if creatures you control have total power 8 or greater, target attacking creature you control fights up to one target creature you don't control.
This seems really bad.
Yeah, for a haste enabler, there's already cheaper ones in red. Formidable is not very good. Like, you have to have 8 power total. So like if you're playing like a red token strategy, you have to have like 4 or 5 or like upwards of 5 tokens to get this online just to fight something with like a small creature. This would be a way better card if it was green, I feel like, because that 8 power wouldn't be so hard to achieve. But red, just like, unless you're playing dragons in red is just not dealing with creatures that have that much power on them.
This, even there, like the catch-22 of this card is like, if you're playing this in a deck that wants to be fighting a ton and you're playing like big creatures, do you really want to take off your turn 4 to play this?
Yeah, that's so bad.
It does nothing. My favorite flavor is 4-mana enchantments that do nothing.
Dude.
And that's exactly what this is. This does not impact the board whatsoever, and it only helps you if you're ahead. Don't play this card.
What's wild is that this card is right next to Legolas Quick Reflexes, and it's like 1 green for that versus like 3 in a red for this. Like
4 for
the
this.
balance.
Do you know what else you can play for 4? Sneak Attack.
There's a card that will actually win you a game.
I'll be the counterpoint. I'll be the counterpoint to the two of you that probably within the context bubble of playing this in Aragorn's, like if you're taking these 6 cards and building him as a deck, it's probably fine in that, right? Because Aragorn definitely feels like the build around out of this box kit is like big +1/+1 counter dudes. And you could reach that formidable with +1/+1 counters pretty fast. But I also agree upon your point is like, if you're playing big, dumb, idiot things anyway, you're probably giving them all those evasive and high stompy keywords anyway, like flying with dragons or trample with like big, dumb beasts.
Yes.
And
just play Goreclaw, Caller, on 4.
That's way better.
Getting one extra blocker out of your way when your things already have trample is kind of an irrelevant point, because when you tell people your cards have trample, they're probably not blocking anyway.
It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get your argument, but also I guess probably within the context of playing this out of the kit as is, it's probably fine, but you're right. Yeah. Just if you need the haste enabler, just play like anything else, literally anything else.
Anger is the same CMC, and you can just discard it to a faithless looting, and you're in a way better spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Isengard Unleashed 2 and 3 red for a sorcery. Damage can't be prevented this turn. If a source you control would deal damage this turn to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals triple that damage instead.
That's your favorite line of text on any Magic card.
Yeah, I like spaced out as I was reading. I'm like, wait a minute. I heard damage triple, and I need to reread this.
And the card itself also has flashback for 5 red.
Yeah.
Wow,
so it's sort of like City on Fire or whatever it is.
City on Fire, Fiery Emancipation. Yep, a one shot Fiery Emancipation. It also has the relevant text on it though that the damage can't be prevented.
That is nice.
Which is sick. I learned doing a little research into some of these cards. I learned a couple fun facts about some of these. Did you know? You might have known this. Maybe I personally did not, but I learned something. You know about this. Cards like these that say that certain effects that can't be prevented. These are kind of cards that can get around protection.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, this is a really great way to deal with people who are playing swords that give protection from, colors, or like even like Animar that has protection from, he's only protection from white and black. He would die anyway.
Yeah,
really it'll get through because protection, it prevents damage is how it's worded. So when something like this says damage can't be prevented, it gets through it.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That was super cool. It was a fun fact I didn't know.
I don't remember the exact like game interaction that happened, but I definitely have played in a game before where I lost. I killed everyone at the table, but I lost to the last person with Torolf because they had some sort of effect that prevented me from dealing them damage.
I was just going to say Torolf definitely wants this card.
Yeah, that would rule. It also does have the flashback of 4 and 3 red, so
you can it's like 2 shots of it,
which is
that's
sick.
Cool.
I like this card. I think it's a little. I mean, I say
it's slow and gimmicky.
steep, It's a 5 CMC sorcery, so it's like you have to do it on your turn.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if that's what you want to do, basically play this card if you feel like you can win. This is like a strange win con.
A card like this reads like Hoof, where like this is the big top end finisher you do to close out a game.
Totally.
If you're dealing triple damage to something, you should be trying to win by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, any deck that wants to play like one of the Fiery Emancipation cards is going to want this as well. That's just kind of like what it is. That's the only deck that this is going to go into.
Yep. Moving on from my pet cards to the last one in the Aragorn section, Rohirrim Chargers. That's 2 and red white. My brain just forgot the color name for red white. Boros, 2 Boros. It's a creature, human knight. You may exert Rohirrim Charge. I hate that is what they called this, because now you have to say that every time you play this.
Every time.
Rohirrim is such a hard word to say. Rohirrim Chargers, you may exert as it attacks. Whenever you exert a creature, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an equipment card. Put that card onto the battlefield, attached to the creature, then put the rest. That's bonky.
That's a little bonky.
You get some Sunforger off that?
I mean, it just grabs, like Chaos warps you into an equipment and it attaches it to itself.
That's awesome.
So sick.
Yeah.
This is like, I mean, Stoneforge Mystic, you get to go and search for it, but like, this is sick.
Yeah. Oof.
Also works with like Enlightened Tutor. Just throw an equipment on top and then exert him, and it just flips it onto him. Oops. There it is.
Oops, free Batterskull.
That's
right, exactly.
I like this card. I think
me too.
For 4 CMC, this is what you should get for 4 CMC.
Absolutely.
Like, this is a lot of value on a 4/4 creature.
Yes.
That's
I
really
do wish that it had haste. It like flavor wise feels like it should have haste, but I understand from a power perspective why it doesn't. Because if you could just like on turn 4 go from my board's empty to I've played a Rohirrim Chargers and then swung into a Batterskull, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Dude, that makes this haste enabler not being a lower CMC feel even worse.
Even worse.
Because like you could go, if Kinley's Reckless Might was 3 CMC, it would be fine. But it's not. It's 4. I think for like Fervor is a 3 CMC haste enabler. I think that's like as cheap as they kind of get. So I just pulled an Oracle. I just named a card from memory, guys.
Wow.
Yeah. Other than those like global haste enablers like Concordant Crossroads or Mass Hysteria.
Yeah. But like singular haste enablers, 3 CMC would be perfect for that, and it wouldn't really power creep things too much. But anyway,
well,
that is
the final question is: would you buy it?
The Rohirrim Charger, or
the box,
the kit,
the box? I would buy this. I actually like 5 out of 6 of these cards.
Yeah,
and that's a really good percentage.
Nice.
And then
is that your score rating? 5 rings out of 6.
5 out of 6 rings.
I like that.
That's silly. I like it. These are all cool. I like actively have already said I want 2 of these cards for decks I already own. So
definitely
I think 1/3 even is enough of a tipping point for me. So
well, I will I'll blitz through the next 2 and then we can close out with John. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Galadriel set, which is called
the Might of Galadriel.
The Might of Galadriel. So it is a Bant set. That is green, white, and blue. First card is Arboreal Alliance, which is X green and a green for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, it makes an XX tree folk. So this is kind of a Hydra on its own, of just like enters as an XX. And then it says whenever you attack with 1 or more elves, populate. So this doesn't seem good, I'm going to be honest. I think... I guess if you're playing an elf deck, you could just play it for green and then have an enchantment of like whenever 1 or more, like you just populate every turn. But I just don't really know if that's what you want to be doing. So moving on from that one, I'm not a huge fan of it. to Galadriel, Light of Valinor, is 2 green, white, blue for a legendary creature, Elf Noble. So this is kind of the face card. She has Alliance, which is whenever another creature enters the battlefield, she triggers and you choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. So you can either add triple green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, or scry 2, then draw a card whenever another creature enters. Now, because you have to choose one that hasn't been chosen, that can only trigger a max of 3 times in the turn. So you get at max 1 of each of those, which is still very good, but that means you're already doing good things because you've had 3 creatures enter.
Unless Galadriel has left the battlefield and come back for some reason, like in a blink deck.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, this could be
she
really...
would be very good in a blink deck, actually, because it's
Displacer Kitten.
Yeah, choose her 3 modes. One of the creatures...
You dog.
Choose one of the 3 modes. One of the creatures that comes in triggers her Alliance is a blink creature that blinks her out, blinks her back in, and then you start making mana again and put another thing down.
She nearly goes infinite with Displacer Kitten. Because it's an Alliance trigger, you could do the 3 and then use one of the Displacer Kitten triggers to bounce her. She comes back in, keep going, and like add a bunch of mana, make all of your stuff infinitely big, and draw your deck. Yeah, okay, play Displacer Kitten in this deck, everybody.
Yeah.
She seems really good for what she's doing. Like, it's sort of doing the token thing. It's sort of doing the elf thing. Seems cool. Moving on to Rally the Galadrim. Galadrim?
Don't look at me.
I'm no expert in Lord of the Rings pronunciation. I'm going to go with you on that one.
Galadrim. This one is the card for Chase, our good friend Chase. So it's 2 green and a blue for a sorcery that creates a token. It's a copy of a creature you control. It has an ability called Conspire, which is as you cast this spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures that share a color with Rally the Galadrim. When you do, you copy it and choose new targets for the copy. So this is make a token that's a copy of one of your creatures, and then for every 2 untapped creatures that you have, essentially, do it again.
That's
so
so
a Chase
silly card if I've ever.
It's so silly because it does nothing but make clones of things. Like that's what. Shout out Chase. Chase loves making clones. It will work in exactly clone decks and nothing else. So,
but it's the perfect colors for it, so it works.
Galadriel's Dismissal is a white for an instant with kicker of 2 and a white. So you can pay an additional 2 and a white as you cast it. It says target creature phases out. If this spell was kicked, each creature target player controls phases out. So this is sort of competing in the Teferi's. This is competing for Teferi's protection. It also makes me realize just how absolutely busted Teferi's protection is for just 3 mana to do everything that it does. But I guess this will probably be a budget Teferi's protection. They've started printing a few of those. Like they realized that it was a mistake. So,
this is a good card.
Yeah, so this is instant speed, 4 mana, all of your creatures phase out. It protects you from a board wipe. The issue is if this happens early on in the turn cycle, all of your creatures are phased out for everybody else's turns until it gets back to you. So like this really, which is
smacked.
Yeah, which is again why Teferi's protection is so busted, because it says that you can't lose life either. Like, so not having something like that means that you're probably still going to get blown out. I don't actually think that this protects you from as much as you would think. It feels like a trap card to me, is what I'm saying.
So where I feel like this card can shine is work it in the opposite direction, because it does not say that you control. Either the regular mode or the kicker mode can target any creature or any player. So if you have somebody's board that's blocking you from closing out a game,
phase them all out.
Just phase out all your creatures.
That's actually
very cool. That actually makes sense why the art looks more like it is an act of aggression, not an act of protection. This is an aggro card.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
very interesting.
It's on the same level of like Taunt from the Ramparts, you know? It's not you use it as
Don't
a
speak
means.
that name around me.
I
can only get so excited.
You use it as a means to get through your person, or if you need to, it's like the thing with Cyclonic Rift, where like Cyclonic Rift can be a single target bounce if need be. For a white mana,
very sad occasions.
Right, but it can happen.
Right.
Flexibility is very important for Commander. When you only have singleton copies of cards, the more that card can do, the more versatility it has in your deck.
1,000%.
Wow. This card is great. When you just unlocked that with you can blow somebody else's board.
Good call
up
on
with
that,
it.
John.
That's sick.
Thank you. Way to read the card.
Wow.
I've heard that explains it, but moving on.
Yes, 2 more cards. Mists of Lorien is 2 and a blue for a sorcery with replicate of blue. So as you cast it, for as many times as you can pay a blue pip, it copies itself. So you return a non-land permanent and each other non-land permanent with the same mana value as that permanent to their owner's hands. And then replicate chooses new targets. So for 3 mana, you just go everything that, hey, I'm going to bounce your Mind Stone back to your hand, and everything else that's on the board that costs 2 goes back to their owner's hands. And then for every replicate on top of that, you can choose a different thing that has a different mana value. So if you're like, I want everything that costs 3, 4, and 5 to be bounced back to everybody's hands, and you have 3 targets of that, it will bounce everything that is 3, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this card is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Notably as well, if you bounce a token with it, it will bounce anything that costs 0 as well.
Yep.
It'll bounce all tokens and anything that costs 0, but that's why it says non-land permanents.
Yep. I was just about to say that. Yeah, spells like these, they've made spells like these before that choose a particular like subcategory of mana value, whatever. These kind of things are always super strong when it comes to targeting a token, because you just all those tokens pick up, and obviously how tokens work within the game. If they go to any other zone, they cease to exist. So bounce spells like that on tokens kind of almost act as removal.
Yeah. This feels like a better version of like Echo of what is Truth. It, John? Echo of Truth, which is bounce a creature and all creatures, or bounce a non-land permanent, all non-land permanents with the same name. Which again is like used to get rid of tokens in things like EDH. It feels cool. Like I don't know. Let me round out the thing here, and then we can talk about the set as a whole. Galadrin Brigade is the last one. It's a 3 mana elf that's a 2/2 that says other elves you control get +1/+1. So it's an elf lord, but it has an ability called Squad, which is as an additional cost, you may pay 1 and a green any number of times. When this enters the battlefield, you make that many tokens that are copies of it. So this seems to be the theme here, is like making tokens that are copies and all of these things. Seems cool. I mean, I think what's happened is they've realized that elves is one of the most powerful creature types that they've printed in Magic's history. So they've really, really gone safe with elves in the last couple of years. And this just feels like they're just trying to change the identity of what elves do in like as a type in Magic. And this feels like an interesting direction where it kind of deals with the multitudes of it as compared to the like sheer forced power of elves. So I think it's cool. I probably will not get this set of Galadriel, other than the fact that the art for Galadriel is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the best arts that I've seen for any of the Lord of the Rings stuff.
That is nice then, by the way. That's something you didn't quite mention when it comes to like these actual box kits as well. You get art cards in here as well.
Oh, yeah.
That make the whole scene. So if you would like to play these cards and still want to use a display easel, you get the panorama art cards that you can put into the easel instead.
Yeah, which I think is super sick.
I love the Galadriel's Dismissal and Mists of Lorien. Those are great. But
yeah.
I don't think I would. I know I
even
said
then, it's
earlier,
just they seem really niche. Like
yeah.
I'm in the same kind of boat. I'm feeling like I'm about 50-50 on this one. Like I think about half of them are cool, some are kind of average in the middle.
It's not as good, I don't think, as the Aragorn one. The Aragorn one is like 5 of those cards are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And this one's like, yeah, I guess in the right situations, like some of them are pretty cool.
Yeah.
So this one feels pretty weak to me. But let's move on to the Gandalf one. It's a Jeskai Gandalf. John, what's it called?
It is called Gandalf in the Pelennor Fields.
Wow, that is the lamest name for anything that I've ever heard. So since he's so far down the list of the collector numbers, let's just start with Gandalf here. So Gandalf of the Secret Fire is 1 blue, red, and a white for a 3/4 Avatar wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery from your hand during an opponent's turn, exile that card with 3 time counters on it instead of putting it into the graveyard as it resolves. Then, if the exiled card doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. So, that's a novel. But what that means is whenever let's say you cast an Ancestral Recall on an opponent's turn, as you know we all do. What's going to happen is rather than that going to the discard as it resolves, you'll still resolve the spell. It'll totally function as normal. Rather than go to the graveyard, it gets exiled with 3 time counters on it and gains suspend, which is at the beginning of your upkeep. You remove a time counter from everything you own that has suspend. When the last one's removed, you cast it. So it end up netting you casting your spells that you cast on opponents' turns twice. It over the course of the next 3 turns.
That's very interesting.
Very interesting and very slow.
I love the irony of this coming out almost in parallel to the Jeskai Suspend Doctor Who deck.
Yeah. Wacky. I hate that Gandalf belongs in the Doctor Who deck. I don't like that this is where we're at as for the state of this game. Wild. Anyway, so Gandalf seems cool. Let's see if they've included it's very funny that 2 of the other cards that come with it are sorceries. That's very strange.
That's a flavor fail. If I've
flavor fail, yeah, cards that you typically cannot cast on an opponent's turn. But
Gandalf is notoriously not fast.
Yes, that's true. Well, he's also not slow. He arrives precisely when he means to. All right, let's start with talking with Aloran's
later.
Yeah, Aloran's Secret Light.
Wizard talk for just saying you're lazy.
Yeah, literally. Okay, so Aloran's Searing Light. It's the first card I'm going to talk about. It's not Gandalf. 2 red and a white for an instant. Each opponent exiles a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. So that's pretty good. And then Spell Mastery is if there are 2 or more other instants if there are 2 or more instants or sorceries in the graveyard as you cast this, as it resolves, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the power of the creature they exiled. So it's like sort of a mass removal spell that sometimes is going to have upside.
Yeah, the best comparison I found for a card like this is called Crackling Doom.
Crackling Doom is amazing.
Yeah, so imagine that, but just like souped up, right? You get the spell mastery going on this. Crackling Doom at face is each opponent loses their biggest power creature and they just take 2 damage flat. So for one extra mana, and if you were able to fill up your graveyard with enough instant sorceries of this becomes biggest power exile, which is far better than just straight up removal. And they'll take damage equal to whatever that power was.
Yeah. I mean, it's very good. I don't really know. Like, I guess, like a Jeskai control deck probably wants it. Maybe my Abdel Adrian deck wants this as another piece of removal rather than playing another Wrath. Who knows? I'll probably try it out. Like this, it seems cool. I'm a big fan of just like, I'm going to throw this in here until the first time that I play it, and then we'll see whether it's worth it or not.
I mean, it seems good for like 4 mana, 3 exile.
Yeah, at instant speed as well. So if you're playing this with Gandalf, like you'll do it, and then in 3 more turns, you do it again. Like, seems good.
There's no greater feeling in a Commander game than watching somebody stumble into a spell that they forgot was coming back in 2 turns.
Oh yeah. Because you're like, I'm not going to tell you. You gotta pay attention.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Watching everybody worry about Wheel of Fate and then forgetting for 4 turns that they're about to lose their hand in 4 turns.
Yes.
No greater feeling.
All right. So we move on to Sorcerer's Squall, which is 6 blue, blue, blue with Delve. So you can exile cards from your graveyard to pay for one of the colorless of it. Target opponent mills 9 cards. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into a graveyard, exile instead. So you mill somebody for 9, you get to play one of their instants or sorceries for free from the graveyard. Seems okay. Like, I don't know. It's not exciting.
This could just say target player. Be way better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be busted. there'd be some interesting space with that too, because since you're delving, you have to like keep the ones in there. But regardless, there's probably like, if you're playing this, there's probably going to be somebody at the table who's got something that like you'd want, but like it just doesn't feel amazing. I'm not excited about this card.
This is one of those cards.
Terrible.
I've been on record before. I've said like these kind of things that like you get a card within a certain subcategory of things either flipped off the top randomly or milled randomly. These always have a chance to whiff, and that always feel bad.
Yes.
Or even let's talk the peak here then for a second. Okay, you've delved away, what is that there? 6? You've delved away 6 resources out of your graveyard. You got this down to blue. You know, like what's the minimum floor of this? You mill somebody for 9 and you get an opt.
Mm-hmm.
You mill somebody
awful.
bad sorcery speed as well.
The fact
don't play this card. That's just where we're going to land it. Is just don't play this card.
It's crazy that they didn't just say target player. Like that could fix this card, because if basically the scenario I see you wanting this card is you're in a situation where the answer for the board state is in someone's graveyard and you already know it's there. Yeah. What if it's yours? You have a 9 CMC card in your hand that you can't do anything with.
Right. I mean, like the dream is that like somebody has like a Rise from the Dark Realms in their graveyard or something, and you're like, ooh, snag that. But if it's in their graveyard, that means they probably already played it. Like,
yeah,
weird. But that's why they threw 9 mil on this.
You don't need to nerf a 9 CMC card by not allowing you to do it to yourself. That's very weird. Anyway,
right.
Moving on.
Moving on to Ramas Ecor, which is the Ancient Shield for 3 and a white. John and I had a little bit of discourse about this card on the Discord, which there's a link for in our bio if you want to join in on the discourse of the Discord. Little plug there real quick. So Ramas Ecor is a legendary artifact that says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card, then create an 0/3 white wall creature token with Defender. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control with Defender gain Exalted. So once again, we're talking about 4 mana things that don't do anything as soon as they come in. But if you can consistently get this to be like casting a second spell each turn, it also is each turn. So like you can do it on your turn and then somebody else's and then somebody else's. That's a lot of spells to be casting though. You do get a card bought back from them, which helps. And an 0/3. And then on your turn, giving all of your defenders Exalted is very, very cool. So I think where this actually is going to like shine is in like defender decks. Like if you're already playing, John, what's the card? It's the dragon.
Arcades the Strategist.
Arcades the Strategist, which is the defender commander.
Or Doran,
you probably want
this.
Yeah, you're right. Doran would be really good at this as well. Seems good. Otherwise, I think it's kind of meh. There's just way better things to be doing at 4 mana. It will be cool eventually, but that's just quite the setup cost to be able to do something cool.
Yeah. Also, like, obviously this goes in defender strategies right now and pretty much nothing else, because to have to play this card and then proceed to have to play 2 cards a turn to accrue value from it is wild.
It is wild. So moving on from that to Courageous Resolve. It's 2 and a white for an instant. Up to 1 target creature you control gains protection from each of your opponents until end of turn and draw a card. And then Fateful Hours. If you have 5 or less life, you can't lose life this turn, and you can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So this is sort of, again, doing a weird sort of budget to varies protection thing. Protection from your opponents is cool. Means it can't be blocked, targeted, dealt damage, enchanted, or equipped by anything controlled by those players. So,
unless they've done March of Isengard, but
yes, exactly. So this is where it's going to get weird. Is, protection and preventing, like damage can't be prevented, is always just going to be one of the weirdest things. But again, it seems fine. Like the Fateful Hours, like if you have 5 or less life, like if you've gotten down to 5 life in Commander, like I'm sorry, just wrap it up. Like I would say, unless you're like, I can come back this turn, like just scoop it up. Like move on to the next game.
It accomplishes the same thing as a board wipe, but it's like the opposite of one.
It also only works for 1 turn. If you're in a position where this saves you, like it doesn't go for the whole turn cycle. So like, congratulations, you've protected yourself from one of your opponents. And then if you're still that wide open to where this is benefiting you, like you're still going to lose next turn.
This is this just calls into question, like, when you're building a deck, the cards that go in your deck are cards that should help you win, not cards that should prevent you from losing. Like,
exactly.
This is just, to be honest, terrible card design in my opinion, because
I kind of agree with
that. Like, that's nonsense.
Yes. It's different when it's something, again, like a Teferi's protection, which is like, I'm going to use this to protect myself for an entire turn cycle. But if you're like, oh no, I don't want Seth to take me out. You know what I mean? So Felby's Shriek is blue and a red for a sorcery. Each opponent chooses a creature they control, tap and goad the chosen creatures. So until your next turn, those creatures have to attack but can't attack you, and it taps them down. And then splice onto arcane or sorcery for 2 blue and red. So for 2, you can either just cast this, or whenever you go to cast an instant or a sorcery, you can pay 4 to add this card's text onto another instant or sorcery, and it stays in your hand.
That's cool.
It's very cool. It's weird having a sorcery that has splice onto instant. That seems very strange and is going to trip up so many people.
Yeah, what?
But I think it's fine. Again, choosing like each opponent. The fact is, the opponents get to choose which character. So if they have a 1/1 elf, they're just going to go, great, my 1/1 elf is tapped and goaded. Galadriel is still doing fine. Like, giving your opponents a choice is almost always the incorrect decision. I don't like the design of like 4 of these cards, so I'm not going to be buying this one.
John, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, like I think, Gandalf is probably very fun to build around in a completely different way. Again, as I just joked about,
Yes.
right? Like, he seems really silly. Slot him into a deck that cares specifically about suspend, or anything that you're doing, like control cards off turn. You know what I mean? Or card draw things. Yeah, just a fun instance and sorcery kind of commander. The individual cards inside of it, like, I mean, I'm much higher on the defender artifact thing than Joseph is.
I know you are.
We made that discussion. I love 4 mana do nothing artifacts. So
ridiculous.
The opponent creature exile card seems fun, but yeah, all the rest of it seems just kind of like very mid instant and sorcery control. So moving on to our last kit, which is called Flight of the Witch King. We obviously need some bad guys to fight all of these heroic wizards and elves and blah, Lords of the Deep and whatever. Aragorn
Lords of the
says.
Rings.
Yeah, the Lords of the Rings themselves. So, Flight of the Witch King is a Rakdos colored box featuring the legendary creature Witch King Sky Scourge. This guy is 5 black and a red for a legendary 5/5 Wraith Noble with flying. Whenever you attack with 1 or more Wraiths, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is their total power. You may play those cards these turns. And Witch King himself has Undying.
Killer.
Which means, yep, if he were to die with no +1/+1 counters on him, he returns to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. So your floor for a card like this is Witch King alone attacks. He flips 5 cards off the top of your library, and until end of turn, you can play them. Typical red impulse draw.
Yeah, seems cool.
Gives you immediate impulse gas. You can not play the stuff that you're not interested in. You can play lands off of this. So very strong as a sort of like play your things post combat, the kinds of cards and effects that care about like if you've already attacked or if you've done combat damage, get the most out of the amount of cards that he can have exiled. And if you've paired him up with the other wraiths or any other forms of wraiths,
like the Nazgul.
Yeah, like the Nazgul. I've got in here specifically that one of the best Nazgul decks you could do apart from mono black would have been the Dimir one, the Dimir Witch King that comes in Sauron's precon deck. This is an interesting different direction. The Dimir one definitely wants you to be played more control-y, while this one wants you to be more aggressive. So if you got the Nazgul and want to try something different, or just bring the two together, right? Grab a Sauron, put these two Nazgul Witch Kings together, make a Grixis, make a Grixis combat rates deck. That seems awesome.
Seems cool.
That seems very fun.
Color rates with Rukremel.
Whoa, that's sick.
What would green and white add?
I don't know. We can talk about that later.
All right.
I have a concern with this card. If you attack with a bunch of race at the same time.
You're gonna deck yourself with this.
Yeah.
Because
it's that same thing we talked about when we covered Commander Masters. The capricious sliver that exiles you cards equal to the amount of damage that slivers do. Same thing, right? If you get really, really high on the board with this, you're going to be losing a lot of resources to it. So that's the risk reward, though, when it comes to big impulse draw. However,
if you're in a position where, let's say, you're going to be exiling 30 or 40 cards with this, that means you're attacking with 30 or 40 power, which means you're probably doing fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's ever really a scenario where it's like, I'm going to accidentally exile my library, but also am not probably going to win the game because of the board state that I have.
That's valid. I'm just thinking, like, the Nazgul specifically, it's so easy to get those to like 4 or 5 power. So easy. And you have like 3 of them. If you attack for like 20 power like that, just a couple turns in a row, your deck is gone. Like,
at the same time, though, like, just don't swing with all of them. Like, the Nazgul specifically want to do the ring tempts you. So, like, you're going to be putting it on one of them, and then the ring keeps tempting you and making everything bigger. So just, like, keep going until you can, like, I don't know, shoot your own Witch King down. Or, you know?
And then it comes back with Undying.
Yeah, just make him the ring bearer. Like,
you're right. I like this card. I think it's really cool. It's just definitely something you have to watch out for. Yeah. You can't just like do an all-out attack. You might kill yourself.
Yeah. Very interesting. You have to be strategic.
So he's the legendary creature that comes in this box. Moving on with the rest of the cards, though, we have Call Forth the Tempest. 5 red for a sorcery. It starts with Cascade. Cascading, as you're all probably aware, is when you cast this spell, exile cards from top of your library until you find a non-land permanent that costs less. Cast that one without paying its mana cost, and then repeat. So before this spell does anything else, you get 2 other spells for free, no matter what.
That's so cool. I'm freaking out.
And then additionally, Call Forth the Tempest will deal damage to each creature your opponents control equal to the total mana value of other spells you've cast this turn.
To each creature?
To each creature.
Your opponent's control?
Boys.
Yeah.
This is a one-sided board wipe that gets you 2 free cards.
Now, obviously, as I've just gone on before saying about that blue card that we talked about from Gandalf's deck, right? Cascade also has a bit of randomness to it if you don't have your deck set up to it, right?
Yeah, you might get Soul Ring.
Yeah, you could get 3 mana value out of this off of your Cascade, but that is still a free amount of damage to your opponent's creatures exclusively that you had no extra cost for. And at minimum, you're still getting at least 2 other cards out of it, and then this itself. So, like,
this is what 8 mana should get you.
Yeah.
This is what it should do.
The floor is bad, but imagine in our hypothetical Rakdos Nazgul deck out of this here. You cast this, you get a Nazgul and let's say
another
Nazgul. Yep.
6 damage to everything I don't control.
Mm-hmm.
That's assuming that you haven't cast anything else before it as well.
Exactly.
Hypothetically, also, my Torolf deck wants this.
Oh,
so
yeah?
bad.
I think Torolf and Ramos want this.
Yeah, because every card in Torolf is cheaper than that, except for City on Fire, which I think is the same. So I could essentially cascade into anything good, and it could be a multitude of damage doublers, like Solfim is in there. Oh man, I'm just
sucks
nice.
Sucks it doesn't go at opponents, but creature board wipes are still strong.
This card is my 2 favorite mechanics shoved into the same card.
It's strapped. They just duct taped your favorite mechanics together.
Yeah, what's Jared's favorite mechanics? First one, Cascade. Second one, the second Cascade.
Yeah. I came here to do two things. I came here to cascade, and I came here to cascade.
Let's move on though to my favorite card in this box though, the Nazgul Battle Mace. 5 mana artifact equipment, equips for 3. Equipped creature has Menace, Death Touch, Annihilator 1, and when an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card onto the battlefield under your control unless that player pays 3 life.
I'm going to be honest, every time that you finished saying one of those things, I thought it was going to be the end. And then it just kept going.
Nope.
I'm still reading it, trying to make my brain make sense.
Yeah.
Of this card.
So
now, granted, it's an 8 mana investment. So, like, hopefully you get something cool.
Yeah, correct. But even with the 5 mana to cast, 3 mana to equip, this is the cheapest way to give a creature Annihilator. The only other previous card that could give a non-Eldrazi Annihilator was Eldrazi Conscriptions, and that's a 10 mana enchantment. So this is now the cheapest way to give a creature Annihilator.
Wow.
Yeah, stays on the board, movable, equipment synergies, all of those apply here. The fact that it also acts as a small it that betrays as well, like you are either taxing them for life or you're getting their stuff. So throw this into any deck that you are forcing your opponents to sacrifice stuff, right? You know, Turgid immediately comes to mind. You know, you're already getting stuff with Turgid.
Oh no, not Turgid with Annihilator.
Yeah, Turgid with Annihilator. Let's go.
Isn't there a Shieldred that makes people sack things?
There is, yeah. Shieldred, the Whispering One, makes people sacrifice creatures at their upkeep.
Shieldred with Swamp Walk and Annihilator is insane.
Dude.
Jokes on you, I sacrificed my swamp.
That's very funny. Okay. This card's bonky. It costs a lot, though.
Yeah. Yes, it costs a bit to do. But again, that's because Annihilator is super strong.
I think this card is sick. I would play it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Let's move on.
Oh, I actually don't think that this is good with Turgid. Rereading it, it's a redundant ability. So, like, he gets the Annihilator, but it's a redundancy of something that's in your command zone. So I would say probably don't play this in Turgid.
Okay.
Anyway,
move on though to Mordor on the March. 3 black and a red for a sorcery. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it. It gains haste until end of turn. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. And Storm.
Oh
yes, Storm Reanimator. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, no, sick. Not necessarily Reanimator. You're exiling something from your graveyard and getting a token copy of it. So it's one of those like pseudo Reanimator things that like you're
cool
losing,
enough for me.
Yep, you're losing the real card from your graveyard, but you get a 1-shot turn effect of it as a token. And then yeah, obviously Storm is incredibly strong, right? Like if you can get one other spell down before this, like say a discard spell that put you 2 creatures into your graveyard randomly, cast this, whoops, I'll just make 2 tokens of them with haste.
Yes. Dude, Buried Alive is unbelievable with this card.
Oh,
just
yeah.
put three. If you can do Buried Alive, one other thing, and then a Mordor on the March, you get all 3 of those things that you just tutored for.
Dang.
Yep, immediately. And a card like this as well, the sort of clause that is the delayed effect on the tokens. All of the same keep your stuff tricks that you can do with Encore, you can do it here. So
stopping your turn.
Yep. When that end step exile trigger goes onto the stack, you can end your turn. You can phase out the tokens. You can counter the abilities. So there are ways to work around this to be able to keep the tokens that you've reanimated.
Nice.
With a few extra steps. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not my favorite in the deck personally, but it's pretty cool all the same.
It's a cool design space, at least.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I think it's great. I think it's so unpredictable that it's
Fellbeast of Mordor is 2 black and a black for a 3/3 Drake Beast. It has flying and Devour 1. Devour is as a creature enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice any number of creatures, and this creature will enter the battlefield with that n-determined number of +1/+1 counters. So in this case, for every creature you sacrifice, this thing enters with a +1/+1 counter on it.
Sweet.
When it enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it.
Bro, this makes me want to play Marchesa again. Sacrificing +1/+1 counters, attack triggers. Give it to me.
Yeah, even without haste, it immediately impacts the board. Gives you a relevant form of sacrifice outlet. Lets you do death triggers if you have them applied on your board. And then if this thing sticks, it's got the sort of Titan attributes to it. You know, it does its thing when it enters the battlefield and attacks.
It's going to win games.
Yeah, life drain is obviously way more important than just immediately dealing out life. You know what I mean? Because it's almost a double point on the life swing of it, right? You are draining one person immediately while also gaining that life right back. So you're essentially hitting them for double because you're boosting your own life total while draining theirs. And on attack damage as well, that's even like before blocks are declared. So this thing has the capability to just wipe somebody out before they even have a chance to block.
It's mega strong.
Wow.
Super good. Goes well with +1/+1 counter synergies as well if you're doing those with blacks, because the card itself doesn't care how the counters got onto it. It just, if you've got +1/+1 counters on here, fantastic. Make this hold the stupid Arndil sword that we were talking about with Aragorn. That seems nutty.
Puts extra counters on.
Yeah, put 2 counters on it every turn and then drain. Super fun.
Love it.
The last card in this kit is Minas Morgul, the Dark Fortress, a legendary land that enters the battlefield tapped. Taps to add a black mana, or for 3 mana, tap it, put a shadow counter on target creature. For as long as that creature has a shadow counter on it, it's a wraith in addition to its other types.
Yes.
So obviously this synergizes very well with the Witch King that comes in this box kit. So anything else that you're playing in the deck that isn't a wraith, you can turn it into a wraith. And
it gains shadow.
Yes, shadow is a keyword ability that says as long as the creature has shadow, it can only be blocked or block creatures with shadow.
Dude.
Shadow is incredibly strong to throw onto aggressive creatures that you weren't going to be blocking with anyways. So almost instantaneously allows easy access of anything that you want with combat damage to get through to somebody. Give it shadow. Turns it into a wraith, triggers with the Witch King. It's great. And as compared to any other form of like an equipment or an aura that would throw onto the creature that would give it shadow, throwing a counter onto it is much harder to remove other than just removing the creature.
Yes.
Shadow also works if the creature that you're giving it to has other evasion keywords on it, right? So like even if somebody else's thing has shadow, if yours is still holding on to anything like flying or trample or menace, those kind of things, those apply as well. And this can work on your opponent's creatures in the same way that white phase out spell in Galadriel's kit does, that you can target any creature with this. If you give something else shadow, that thing can't block.
Oh, that's very rarely going to come up, but I think that's very cool.
Yeah, very rarely. But again, you know how I am. I love my versatility on cards.
That's such a cool corner case. Like if they have one big thing that's going to block, you can just shadow it.
Like imagine this scenario. You've gone up against the person that is throwing down in a Academy Rector that they are looking to have die as a blocker.
Throw shadow on it and it can't block.
Yeah. Whoops.
Dude, that's really cool. You can shadow things that want to block.
Yeah.
Just tuck them away.
Yeah,
that's just so sick.
Go to the Shadow Realm.
I like that. That's very cool. Wow, I like that set a lot.
Yeah,
that set of 6 is nice.
Yeah, I'd probably say like in the same. This is probably the same as the Aragorn one for me. Like I'm.
Yeah, you guys got the cool ones.
Hey, you let us. You picked.
I know.
You picked.
It's because I'm generous and benevolent.
Yeah, I'm pretty hype about like 5 rings out of 6 for me, right? Like I'm only kind of really not crazy about that Reanimator one, the token one, but other than that, everything else in here is sick.
Bro, Cascade board wipe is the coolest.
I love that.
Also, I was thinking the interaction between Cascade and Storm is so cool.
Right.
Like if you cascade into it, like of that card, the Cascade. If you cascade into it first, you're going to get it twice. If it's the second Cascade trigger, then you're going to get 2 Storm copies of it.
Dude, that's cool.
So cool.
I want to build Storm Cascade.
All right. Now how about
Dude, Ramos Storm Cascade?
How All right, Joe, how about this hypothetical? You're casting Call Forth the Tempest. Your first cascade is the Fell Beast of Mordor. It enters first. Sacrifice your real creatures. The second cascade hits the Mordor on the march. You storm, reanimate the stuff you sacrificed.
That's killer. I love that.
And then Call Forth resolves, and you hit every other creature for 9.
That's so exciting.
Your Fell Beast enters, drains somebody else for 4, and then immediately comes in with haste.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Magical Mordor Christmas Land.
Hey, that's a very real possibility, though.
We love it. But yep, I would absolutely buy this one. I like it a lot.
Me too.
Gentlemen, any other thoughts on wrap up as far as the new holiday release is concerned? Like, how are we feeling about it?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think this is a cool new product. Like, this is something that's entirely new. I love that they're starting to do like, you know what you're going to get. Like, when you buy this product, it will have some cards that you know you're going to get, and that they're making those cool cards that you'd want as well. So like, when you buy the Aragorn, like I'm probably going to buy the Aragorn one just for Legolas's swift instincts or whatever it is. And I know I'm going to get that. His quick reflexes. And so I know I'm going to get that card that I want. Plus I'm going to have some other cool things that I can start to kind of like tinker with. Plus a few set boosters. Plus really cool art cards, which maybe an unpopular opinion, I love the art cards. Like when I buy set boosters, I love spending some time looking at the art cards that are with them.
I enjoy it too. It's a little out of frame for me right now, but you can actually probably see on my wall back over here on this shelf, this little display hanging right over there is our signed art cards that we have opened over the years from set boosters. We have them up on the wall as an art display.
Wow.
Cute.
Any thoughts then as well from some of the other stuff that's going to be available as far as this product is concerned? Because like there's a whole like booster release that are coming alongside with this as well. You know, these new special edition collector boosters. There's the new like scroll artwork treatment of frames.
The scroll looks so bad.
Yeah.
The scroll looks awful.
It's a little rough. And unlike what was originally pitched, it's not a curation from the set. It's the whole set.
Yeah.
The whole set, all the cards, commons, all that stuff in that treatment. It's cool that you can get some of the commander rares and mythics in that thing as well. So if you missed out on the precons and like you really wanted Bilbo, here's another chance to open it.
True. But what you actually want is Taunt from the Rampart.
Yeah, Taunt from the Rampart's in there as well.
But not the scroll treatment.
There are those there's the 20 cards that have the rock poster arts to them. You don't like them?
Also awful. No.
Yeah.
If you guys notice me making strange faces every time they say something, it's because I don't care about the art very much. So I tuned that out entirely. Mm-hmm. You said rock faces?
Rock posters. Yeah. Do you remember that? Remember that Grateful Dead style looking like Sauron we showed you a couple weeks ago?
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like a whole bunch of other ones like that. You can get like Sauron and Gandalf and the One Ring and a bunch of things with really cruddy looking band poster style artwork.
Cards that are really hard to read.
They're very rough, yeah.
And are even harder to read on Spell Table.
Yep.
I hate those cards. Play normal looking cards.
I think anybody can play whatever they want. The rule has always been as long as you're like fairly representing what your board is doing. I just think we're really approaching a space where like the official cards do not do a good job at fairly representing what your board state is. Where it's like, if I have to ask you every time to pick up your card because the text is written, vertically down the side of it, like please just tell, like, I just want to play the game. Like, I just want to, guys, we've spent quite a long time talking about Lord of the Rings and it's been great. Glad we got to chat about all this. I love you, boys. Where can you find all of us? Discord, perhaps? Discord, perhaps. We also have an Instagram now.
Yeah.
That posts memes every once in a while. So go follow us on Instagram too. Every once in a while. I've been busy.
What's the handle of the Instagram?
It is just at MTG Thoughtcast on Instagram. You can find us there. Certainly can't find us on Twitter. That's definitely not.
You mean exactly
on X?
So stupid.
Gosh,
And-
no.
And
But-
we're here on the channel as well.
That's
so
right.
please do all of the
Yes.
click
Make the
subscribe-
robot overlords like us
Yeah,
by
ring
giving
the
us likes, comments, subscribes.
Yeah,
Also,
ring the subscribe, click the thumb,
Yes.
ring the bell.
We're also we're streaming sometimes on twitch.tv/MTG Thoughtcast.
Yeah, we like to stream some spell table games when we can all get together and do that.
We
Yes.
love casting spells.
Yeah, we
Settle Money Wizard Gang. All right.
just let us know in the comments too if there's any kind of specific Magic content y'all would like to see from us. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you've made it to
We
the end of
should.
this episode, we love you.
yes,
We should be back again soon, or at least these two should be, with the Doctor Who
Oh,
decks.
to talk about Doctor Who. I'm so excited. It's spoiler
Yeah.
season for it right now as we're recording this. And I'm literally what I've been doing every night is I will put on Doctor Who and then jump on Reddit. So it's like window and window, and I'll scroll through the spoilers as I'm watching Doctor Who at night.
wow, that's a vibe.
It's the proper way to do it. I'm just saying. From when we
All
were a
right.
proper country.
Oh man, wow. Yeah,
All right.
Anyways.
We'll see you guys.